so that you can all get home and watch the game tonight. Sorry, I always think my voice carries. It doesn't. Huh? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Ah, that's good.
Thank you.
Hello, Zoom. Okay, Craig, I don't know whether any of you know him. He's very active in the birding community. He's been president of the New Haven Bird Club, and he's now the conservation chair of the Connecticut Ornithological Association. So he's taken this upon himself, which is a pretty heavy job, I think. So very happy to welcome Craig Rapace.
Excuse me while I navigate. Yeah, good. Yeah, this is my presentation. Presenters. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. I was here a few years ago to talk about the Connecticut Bird Atlas. I remember some of you from then. So expect in the next year to hear an announcement of what that's going to be. So that's still in discussion right now. So this is not a blank screen. I'm going to, yes. Okay, gotcha. You see this? You see which one is Zoom? Zoom is way down at let me shrink this. It could be a minimize. Is this it?
You and go to speaker view.
All right. And who's it? All right. So who zoomed out after all these years? Okay, that's good. All right. I have lost my view. I've lost my presenter's view. That has all my notes. Yeah, I've lost all my notes. Okay, I apologize. I've lost my notes. So, yeah, it does, but I trying to get the presentation and then my screen to have the presenter notes. So I'm sorry, I don't want to read it. But anyway, okay. Try to imagine that this is a blank screen. I'm going to leave you in the dark. I'm sorry, we have all kinds of lights right now and the sun's just setting. But try to imagine this up in the dark. What do you feel? What is out there? You're gonna have a sense of red in the finger. Oh my God, what's out there? Maybe stop that. You're not ready. Now imagine if you were a bird, staying or flying, as opposed to a human. So
Now, in fact, I know you guys are birders, so you probably go out all the time. So it's exciting. That's nice. But a lot of people, they don't know where different stars and the constellations. Right now, I'm sure everybody has heard about four visible stars. You know, different constellations like Eastern Northeastern. Yeah, I don't get it. So, what is the face of the moon right now? It's somewhere in South tomorrow, I think we're going to have a full moon. So obviously, this technology is very size, but my opinion is that as humans, we can go weeks and months looking at the night sky.
Sure. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm working the crowd. It was but when I shared my screen with Zoom, I lost my presenter notes on this. So this is the best we can do. I don't know how that works. So if there's some PowerPoint wizards out there, this is really with the interface with Zoom. So where were we? So yeah, we go years without noticing the night sky. So if I could ask you to be a bird for now. So you're a passerine that migrates. So you do not have the luxury of ignoring the night sky. Ornithologists, they continue to try to understand how birds navigate. Not everything is fully known. As a bird, you would migrate at night. You're using barometric pressure, magnetic fields, and the stars. You evolved literally millions of years ago to navigate in a dark world. You are taking advantage of the explosion of insects and other fruit that happens in our hemisphere. So you will spend your winters down in South America and come up here where the territory and the food is abundant so you could raise your young. So you also evolved to migrate at night. As you know, you're hawk watchers and you probably enjoy watching ducks and geese migrate. They do that during the day. Everything else, the passerines for the most part, are migrating at night. This is so they could avoid predators and stay cool, obviously. They are following ancient routes. You know, by the time that our current birds were set, our hemispheres, our continents were pretty much set in this place. So they are following ancient routes. I find that totally amazing. So they're following stars in the Earth's magnetic field. As a bird, you're flying through the air, obviously, and you have to think about the air as habitat. It's just not a void. So between the treetops and the mountaintops to the stratosphere is this layer cake of air currents, of bands of cold air, warm air, jet streams with headwinds and tailwinds. Some of these things could speed you along your way. Some of them could kill you. So obviously, migration has a cost, but in the long run, because they could have more chicks up here, it's a success for the birds that do migrate. So in these layer cake, this layer of air, birds are killed by microbursts and things. Now, looking at where some of our birds migrate, where they fly, waterfowl is about 200 feet. Raptors are 700 feet. I'm sure you have some people in your club that are experts. They see a hawk. It's just a speck in the sky, but they know if it's a broad wing or not. And songbirds are at 500 feet. These are elevations that they are enjoying as they're cruising. However, the risks happen when they have to take off at like now or land during the dawn. So as birders, as humans, we're back to being human now, we could experience migration as the birds eclipse the moon. I don't know if you've ever done that, like you'll see them coming through. And that's how they used to do estimates for migrations, by calculating the area of the moon that they're seeing and do a calculation of how big the sky is, and too much math for me. Sometimes we hear them, they're going to be a single bird or they could be a flock, but we could hear the contact calls as they fly overhead. So here again, they're navigating on these very old migratory routes, and we have built our cities and our highways under their migration routes. So in effect, that their migration is colliding with our artificial daylight. Just some numbers, just to remind you, it's about 722 birds in North America. 76% of those migrate, and 80% of those migrate at night. So right now, we're on the shoulder of warbler season, one of the best times of the year. So we could probably list who we are going to expect pretty soon. This graphic can be disturbing. As you know, we have a very rich habitat up here in Canada. This is the boreal taiga forest that produces a lot of those bright warblers that come through. They're here for a week or two in May or so, and then they're gone. We only see them when they're very confusing in different plumage as they come back through in the fall. Furthermore, just take over on your trip, that you have this breeding area in this northern part where most of our shorebirds are going to do their breeding, and they will come through during the spring and fall migration. So 4 billion birds will come from Canada into the contiguous United States. Many of them obviously will nest in the southern tier of this country. We have 4.7 billion birds that will leave the United States into Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America, like bobolinks all the way to Argentina. So it's an amazing feat. Now, the bad news is in the reverse migration in spring, we have 3.5 billion birds coming into the United States and only 2.6 billion birds going back into Canada. Obviously, we have lost a lot of birds. Some of the issues are loss of habitat. Loss of habitat on their migration, on their winter grounds, and also loss of habitat on their migratory routes, and window collisions and light pollution related injuries. So you see we have like 76% of the birds that are getting back into the United States, only 64 making it back to Canada. I'm sure we've all seen this. This is Doppler radar, where you can actually watch a cloud of birds take off from their nesting grounds. They first will appear like a little speck, and then it becomes a cloud, and then it could cover like half of our continent almost. Rather fascinating to watch. Also, I highly recommend watching Birdcast. This is a product put out by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology that uses the same technology, but it's very, very enhanced, where they will give you an estimate of what is going to be migrating over you that particular night based on radar, based on counts. So if you've seen it, like check it out tonight, you'll see that the Mississippi Flyway is very busy right now. We're kind of dark at this point, but wait, just a few weeks, we're gonna light up. So this is a very valuable tool. This can be used to shut down hazards that migrating birds have. Could be windmills, could be solar panels. It could be a lot of things that we could shut off during migration. I give this talk to people who are non-birders. You know, there are people out there like that. So there are a lot of animals that have their own evolution stories, not just birds. Obviously, bats, a lot of them migrate. Some of them obviously will hibernate. There are insects that will migrate, or just they go dormant, but they rely on the night. You know, those of you, I hear a lot of talk about pollinator gardens. A lot of our pollinators aren't just butterflies or bees, they're moths and beetles and other insects, and they rely on the night. Other animals are fish, sea turtles, amphibians. So yeah, tonight we're gonna have a treat with your chorus frogs out by the parking lot. Okay, this isn't working, but this is a fun slide, but it's not working in this mode. Now to contrast where humans have evolved. We really evolved in the day. We love daylight. You know, we were afraid of the caves You know, we would light them with fires. We were afraid of the short-faced bear and the saber-toothed tigers that's in there. And that has been transferred into our monsters that live under the bed or in the closet. This slide, it was like glowing eyes to make you afraid. And then when you turn the light on, you see that it's something that's totally harmless, like Ernie and Bert. So getting back, as humans, we've always have tried to light up the night, either with fires. By 1807, we were using gas lamps, street lamps. And then we started developing incandescent lighting and then compressed halogens. And now we're in a special class of LEDs, which are wreaking havoc on us and is wreaking havoc on our wildlife. But a bright night does not necessarily make you any safer. This one is hard for people to believe, but in 2015, there was a study done in the UK, pretty much Yale, Wales, and in England, where they looked at 62 municipalities and found that the lighting choices or timing had no effect on overall safety or crime. It's kind of, somebody's challenged me on this. I'll have to follow up with her. I like this slide, not because I like glare, but glare is our enemy. As we get into these really bright 21,000 Kelvin lights, LEDs that everybody's using, you have this glare. You can't see things in the glare. I'm at this tail at the very beginning of developing cataracts. And so there's going to be glare. So glare is just not something that you can see through. There's a great slide where somebody is standing in their backyard and they're looking at it with this huge floodlight. You can't see anything. It's all glare. It's like these spikes and everything. And then when the photographer shields the light, you actually see somebody is standing there. So when you're driving in glare, you can't see obstacles, you can't see hazards, you can't see bad people. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily make us safe, but this is how we have chosen to light up our cities, our towns, our highways, our driveways, our backyards. We use them to advertise. Everybody knows where this is. So we have used lights to sell our products and to highlight our accomplishments and our monuments. And so what has happened is we have this orb around us, this glow that is constantly there. And to make matters worse, that we have these spikes of light that come out of this. They could be for obviously airport signals, or sometimes they're just beacons because somebody wanted to have a beacon on their building. So we have to pick and choose. So does this look familiar? This is Connecticut. So see how Long Island is totally lit up. Now, how does this impact the marine life of animals trying to come on shore, like our turtles to breed, etc.? This is, I'm sure everybody, or most people have made a trip to Cape May, New Jersey, but this is the 95 corridor. Here's 91. Here's probably Litchfield up here, somewhat in the dark. So there are some officially designated dark sky sites in New England, and two of them are in Maine, but there's some that are actually good for astronomy. There's one out for the Lyme Land Trust that they have open to the public, where you can go out and view stars and things. So this is what the birds fly into, are flying over. How many people here have seen the Milky Way? Is it easily visible from up here? Okay, no. All right, well, I live in Hamden, so this is pretty much my night sky. As a kid, this is where I grew up in northern Vermont. It was like this, but that is changing. So we could only see a few stars on a clear night. You know, so, and the planets are quite obvious when they are visible. But think about this: these stars, their light left that star. That what we're seeing now left that star when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So you think about that for a second, and this is what's being lost to us because of light pollution. We are literally being robbed of the poetry of the universe. I'm going to see if I could get this going with other technical difficulties I've had. There may be an ad, I can't.
5 words you pronounce 1 to 2 years before your brain starts shutting down. Dementia.
Okay, that's not it. That's an ad. Okay, this is from New York.
Artificial light at night is a major problem for birds, and it's especially a problem during migration. So migration happens in one hemisphere twice a year in the fall and in spring. There are hundreds of millions of birds flying over New York City at night, and they're using the stars to navigate the moon to help them see things, and using the Earth's magnetic field, and they're hopping on the right winds, tailwinds, carry them the right direction. And then they're flying along, and let's say they fly past New York City, and all of a sudden they just take light. And birds are attracted to light.
Those are birds.
Who go far to light. And then you see in very strong beams of light, like the ceilometer used in an airport or attributed light memorial that we have fairly near the city. Birds will fly through that light field, and then they'll fly around. Can't get out of it. We say sometimes they get out on their own. Sometimes we need to let itself. Because if it changes the bird's behavior, if you're changing behavior during migration, something the bird has. So it made it a little extra energy to carry it past that point. These are birds that are flying thousands miles, sometimes without stopping, to get from one point to another. And then the light. And they don't have that extra energy current. Energy that birds use is, for the most part, in the form of that. If you think about Earth being what attack the most amount of stuff is being made in the smallest. So you have to carry it. What's the same thing with the birds? They want to pack on as much fat as they can without being so heavy that it costs them a lot. So deep for us, that's black. What we see is birds land in place. And then the next day, when the light comes up, the natural light, continue on the plate and go to sit in the tree and look for food and run over the food in the city and fly into glass. So either transparent or reflective glass. Bird thinks it's flying into a tree and it's flying into the reflection. Sky, flying to the reflections, that is flying. We find dead birds. These birds are very over the skull, which injuries from hitting the wall.
This changes everything we know about what really causes toenails to be fixed.
Sorry about I.
Most people have been brainwashed by medical establishments.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, this is on YouTube. All right.
Florida is close to around 90% of all people.
This entire video is actually worth looking at. So a couple of things that she mentioned that I want to underscore is the mechanism that the birds are confused by the light. And so I mentioned how they can fly in flocks and they have these contact calls. It's kind of like a game of Marco Polo. I don't know if you've ever played that with kids or anything, but it's a way of saying, I'm here, where are you? And they say, I'm here. And so they will keep a flock together. But when they get caught in the light, those contact calls become more and more frenzied. Their flight pattern becomes more and more frenzied. They will circle around these beacons until they literally fall out of the sky exhausted, or they can fly into the windows. So this happens at night. I'll get into the other mechanisms of what is happening around our homes in a little bit. But she also points out that there is no selective pressure happening here. Going back to Darwin, we don't see glass. We can't see through glass. They can't see glass. So there's no selection going on. So the strong birds, the fit birds, the prolific birds, they're the ones that are banging in and killing themselves. They're killing themselves for out and out total damage, or they will get a brain swelling from a hematoma, a concussion, and we say, oh, it flew off, it's going to be fine. No, it probably went into the shrubs and died probably within the hour. They just were not made to withstand this, and there's no way that they're going to evolve to get over it. Sorry about the bad news. Another issue, as she mentioned, I'd like to point out that they will exhaust themselves flying around where they were supposed to go over New York, where they're supposed to go over New Haven. They get lost and they fly around. They come into areas where they would have flown over. And so they are exhausted. Then they wait in the day. That's their time to rest and refuel. And so they're going to be in yards and city parks and areas that are surrounded by glass. And that's what brings on the collisions during these migrations. So yeah, light pollution is causing these window collisions. And so when they crash into a window, we may not see that. Oftentimes a cat or a skunk or a blue jay or something has picked up that carcass and flown off with it. So case in point, 2017, just in like a 1 week period, this is down in Texas, floodlights on a skyscraper, killed 400 passerines. So here again, 722 species in North America, 76 migrate, 80% migrate at night. We lose 1 billion birds a year in the United States due to light pollution related window strikes. That's 1 billion. I have been corrected on this by people who are in the science more, that this is a lowballed number. Now, to make bad news worse, half of this is occurring at our homes. You know, we like to blame the big glass buildings and the corporations for what they've done, but half of this number, that's 500 million birds, are dying in our backyards because they're colliding into our sliding doors and our picture windows. Another issue is the way we feed, where we place our bird feeders. I don't know what's happening here. Where we put our bird feeders. If you put up bird feeders, you really need to make sure that the windows that face the bird feeders have been bird proofed, and more about that later. So with 1 billion birds being lost, you probably have seen that report that came out in Science in 2019, that since 1970, we have lost 3 billion birds in the United States. That means our bird population is down 3 billion. So of course, they breed, they have offspring every year, but then we're losing another billion on top of this. So a lot of our species are headed towards a total collapse. I know I'm bumming you out, but it's my job. But here I've been with the COA as a conservation chair for about 6 years now. There's a lot of things that are facing our birds. There's rising sea levels. There is forest fragmentation. There's loss of our grassland species. There's the poisoning and draining of our wetlands. There's the use of neonics. There's the use of rodenticides that cause owls and hawks to bleed out. These are some really hard issues to fight because there's some well-moneyed interest behind it. But this issue of saving 1 billion birds is as simple as shutting off your light and putting up the proper protection on your windows. This is an easy one that we can do. Or we're going to see our birds just become a ghost. So here's a case study. I don't know if you're familiar with New Haven. A few years ago, this building was built. It's Evans Hall, as part of the Yale School of Management. And it has like 130,000 square feet of glass that's reflecting trees. It has atriums with plants inside. And people immediately thought this is going to be a bird killer. And they were right. It was a bird killer. So right off the bat, people did get together. One is Viveka Morris. She is on our steering committee. And they designed a study on how to go around this building and to pick up the birds, the bird carcasses, and make an estimate of where it struck, because oftentimes there's a feather left on the window, where it struck, where it landed, its age, if they could, all this data. So they started collecting it. And just a shout out to the Yale custodial staff. A lot of these people have been told, pick it up first thing in the morning, get here early, and throw it in the trash before anybody sees it. So there's not a problem if you don't see it. So the custodial staff was actually working with these students to help catalog, help list and collect this data. So really hats off to them. But the really bad news, but this is just one building, 419 bird fatalities and 19 injuries were recorded from 2018 to 2022. So try to imagine all of the glass in downtown New Haven, and you could just imagine what the actual carnage was. They actually had a Bicknell's thrush that was identified. The Yale Peabody Museum is actually collecting these carcasses, and they're doing an autopsy and they're cataloging them. Yes, there's an upside to this. So here's the data. This is showing just better data collection. Over the years. It's not like the windows got worse or anything. It's just more people were involved, so they were able to collect more. However, to answer your good news, last fall, they took one side of the building and they put shades on it, some window covers. And then they found there was the most lethal part of the building, and it went to close to zero because of the shades that were put on. So people in the exterior on the outside. Yeah, they're special blinds that will cut up the reflection. If it's on the inside, you can still get a reflection. So if it's on the outside, to break it up, that the birds will see it. Well, we'll get into more of how birds see all this. So these are the collisions by month. So obviously October is the worst. April is not great, but tail end of April, but then May is pretty bad. These are the species, a lot of doves, a lot of juncos, white-throated sparrows. So a lot of our wintering birds were having issues. So we're here as Lights Out Connecticut. We do have a connection to this study at Yale, but a couple of things that you can do to join Lights Out. I have a pledge sheet here by signing up or filling it out, leaving it with me, and pledging that you're going to shut off your lights. You're going to do something about your windows, all these things that I've mentioned here. We will get your name, and we could send out important information or alerts or emails to keep you in the loop. A lot of what we discuss is the type of lighting. This is coming from the International Dark Skies Association. If there are any amateur astronomers in the crowd, you know exactly who these people are. They're looking to have totally dark skies. And it's not a matter of just shutting off lights. It's a matter of shielding, so you don't have glare going in an orb around the lights. You do not have this horizontal light trespass that shines into your neighbor's eyes, your neighbor's house. By down shielding, as shown here, it puts the light where it's needed. It's very easy to do. Changing the color temperature. I have a next slide about that. To go from this very bright 21,000 Kelvin, this blue light, this is the deadly stuff. This is where the glare is. This is where, as humans, where we are going to have insomnia, we're going to have stress, we're going to have cognitive disorders, and this light has even been linked to endocrine-based cancers. This is not making us healthy, but man, it's been cheap. You know, right? Making these LEDs has been very cheap to do. So people have doubled up on it. So what has happened is our night skies have exponentially brightened. So go to the color temperature. You know, we've all probably remember the amber bug lights on the back porch. Go back to that, or use some of these more soft white that are around 3000 Kelvin or less, or just change the intensity like on a dimmer switch, or put things on a timer, or put things on a motion sensor. Motion sensors work great because, you know, if something is out there, somebody is out there, you light it up for them. If it's a criminal, they don't like to have a light shine on them. That's far more effective than having lights on all the time so they can see what they're doing. You know, they could leave their flashlight at home because you're lighting their workplace for them.
Should we not use LEDs then?
You could use, okay, you could use LEDs, keep it to a minimum. Okay, this is the scale that LEDs come in. This is the really bright blue-white lights that we see everywhere now. This is like midday sun for humans. We are programmed to like this kind of night at dusk and at dawn. You know, that's like the sun is setting. So when we have this all the time, 12 o'clock at night, that's not good for us. This is not good for wildlife. So the suggestion is for outdoor lighting is at this 2700 Kelvin. I know if anybody, does anybody know what this Kelvin means? It's kind of confusing. This is not the temperature of the light. Kelvin is a temperature scale. So going back to black body radiation and quantum mechanics and all this, if you have a black body and you heat it up to a certain temperature, this is the light that it would emit. That's all. And so this is a comparative scale. And this is the technology, this is the terminology that they're putting on the packaging. So this is what you want. This is fine if you're just going to have it on for a little bit or while you're working at night, but to have your entire yard lit up like this all night long is not good for you. It's not good for your neighbors. So light causes the birds to come into your area. They could crash because of the lights, but if they're going to be in your area, that's when we run into this risk of the window strikes. I highly recommend checking out American Bird Conservancy. Also checking out the International Dark Skies Association, a lot of good material. I have a good handout from the ABC on how to bird-proof your windows. Who has used this? Okay. Yeah. When these first came out, the theory was that this was a big bad Merlin that's going to get the birds and they'd freak out and fly away from your yard. It doesn't work that way. The only way this is going to work is if it breaks up the reflection. And what they found is that you have to have this reflection broken up by 2 inches by 2 inches. If you have bigger gaps, smaller birds, smaller sparrows and finches and hummingbirds will fly right into those gaps. So you want to have your decals to be 2 inches. Window decals are wonderful. Same thing. This one is butterflies. Still the same problem. They have to be 2 inches apart from each other. There is a product. It's over there somewhere. It's like you dot it on your window. It actually will fill the void just with this dot that the birds could see. Or you could use decals in film, tape, vertical hanging cords that are 2 inches apart. Okay, this is kind of old. It's 2 by 2. It used to be 4 inches, but they're finding that hummingbirds are falling in. So you can make a drape out of P-cord, which I have over here in this model window, using shades and screens. Or some windows could be painted with tempera paints. You know, it's not going to come off in the rain, but at the end of the season, when you want to wash it off, so you could see your winter birds, it does come off with a sponge and water. And if you have kids around, it's a great art project. There's other things that are available commercially that contractors could use. This is what we see. This is what the birds see. You know, so it's in the UV zone where humans don't see. So other steps that could be made. A word about the World Trade Center monument. This is where the Audubon in New York City has done a lot of studies, and they asked if it could be shut off during the fall migration. You know, this is a very, very profound monument for Americans. It's not going to be shut off. However, what Audubon will do is that they will monitor the number of birds that are circling these beacons. And when it gets to a certain number, they say, okay, hit it. And they'll flip the switch and shut it off. And they have found that by shutting off the monument, these bright beacons for 20 to 30 minutes, that the birds that were circling will recalibrate and go on their way and clear out within 20, 30 minutes. So this is the approach that's being taken. So it's good, that's helpful. Part of the monument is to reach way up as far as you can see. And I know. It's like, I think it has spiritual meaning. Yeah, so they've tried, and this is the best compromise they can have, but it seems to work. You know, they clear out as opposed to circling this for hours until they hit windows and fall out of the sky exhausted. So it's something. You know, sometimes when it comes to conservation, we can't have it all. So we have to be happy with something and pray for everything else. Here is a bird killer on the shores of Lake Michigan. They have found, by analyzing a lot of data and weather patterns and everything else, that if they shut off the lights in this area, just 50% of the lights, they found that bird mortality decreased by 60%. So yeah, just shut off the lights. So what can we do? Like starting now, because it's past April 1st through May 31st, shut off your lights from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. All nights even better. And then again in the fall between August 15th and November 15th. So take our pledge, brainstorm on what you could do in your town or in your neighborhood to make things dim and shut the lights off so they're not on all the time. Advocate, reach out to your selectmen or your board and help collect data. And please join us. This is our website, lightsoutconnecticut.com. Take the pledge. There's a lot of material that I've presented tonight that you can find. And this is what we're doing. We're organizing. We are meeting with different pollinator groups and bird groups to see what we could do to reach out with education, reach out with presentations to school kids, and try to foster some projects with them, support different towns. We've talked to a councilman in Bridgeport. You know, there's a lot of things that we've done so far. We're only a year old, but we have a track record. We have resources, so you could go on and help yourself to whatever I have here, or go onto the website and print them out. And support bird strike monitoring. More about that in a moment. Have you heard about this? HB 6607. Okay, yeah, we've been campaigning this. We're calling this the Lights Out Connecticut bill. It only applies to state-owned and leased buildings. So we're talking colleges, we're talking office buildings, everything. They will shut off their lights during those time zones and during those dates that I told you about. It had an analysis for the fall migration and found that it was going to save like close to $1 million in energy costs. So, you know, how does it, yeah, it's going to save us tax money. It's like, yeah, sometimes in order to do the right thing, we have to show how it's going to hit our wallet, unfortunately. So this particular bill has made it out of committee. It is being, we're waiting for it to be called for a vote on the House floor. So the way things work is that the more representatives we have that are co-sponsoring it, the better chance it has of moving forward. So if you haven't done so already, reach out to your senator and to your representative and ask them to co-sponsor. Yeah, this could be a game changer for us, because they'll say, look, the state of Connecticut is leading by example. Why can't you? Furthermore, the original bill had a provision that anytime there is a new building in the state or they're going to renovate a building, that they will be using fixtures that are approved by the International Dark Sky Association. That is going to be as far as downshielding, that's going to be as far as the color going to 2,700 Kelvin instead of the 21,000 that they're using. So here again, it's going to be cost savings down the road.
Years ago, they were trying to develop a glass that would have this, in it. Has that come?
It's out there. The price for these glass has been coming down. So one thing I didn't point out, which is rather important, they have found, studying Evans Hall, that on the second and first floor, that's where the majority of the bird strikes are occurring. So these are from birds thinking they're flying into trees. It's not the ones that you see crashing in because they are flying in a beacon. So even if a building uses that type of glass on the first and second stories and then lights up the rest, it's going to work. It's going to have a huge impact. So yeah, that's coming more and more available. It's like technology is going to save us all. Yes, John.
If you don't find any dead birds around your house, the building, that means you don't have a problem?
It means you didn't find any dead birds. It means that the other birds, that the dead birds could have been picked up by predators. So there are cats, there are skunks, there are crows and blue jays that'll pick them up. So even though if you don't see it, you might see a spot on your glass showing that there was a strike. Or if you're sitting at your house and you hear a thunk, I know it feels like I got kicked in the heart when that happens, because sometimes no matter what you do, they're still going to hit. So share this with your neighbors. So a quick story behind us. We got started basically with Vivica Morris, who is with the Yale Law School. She went through Yale School of the Environment, got her undergrad. She started these surveys. And I got an email through the New Haven Bird Club contact email. Somebody had just started at the Divinity School asking what's being done in New Haven or Connecticut about light pollution. What about lights out? And the answer was, oh God, nothing. It was a very embarrassing moment. But since then, that was Meredith Barges. We have teamed up. We've created Lights Out Connecticut. Last year, about February, we became an official committee with a COA. We get donations from individuals, from different clubs, COA itself, so very helpful. We are about 12 statewide Lights Out organizations in the country. There are two, all but two are actual chapters of the National Audubon Society. So, we are the first that are doing this with nonprofit groups. What you can do, you can monitor. If you do see a dead bird, go to DBird. Please excuse the morbid sense of humor. This was developed by the New York City Audubon, like eBird, because eBird, they will not take the sighting of a dead bird. So we are using DBird. It is a web-based, there's no app. You just pull up your internet on your phone, go to this site. You could put in your location. Then it goes into do you know the species? Do you know the sex? If it's unknown, click unknown. Age, I know during fall, you might have to pretend like you're at a banding station in order to have this information. Don't worry about it. The date, if the bird was dead or just injured, and if you know what killed it, car attack, collision with building, whatever. And this is one way of collecting data. I know in Yale, they have a project that's covering the entire city that is being done by Yale students and other volunteers. So people from New Haven Bird Club are doing this. There's a student, a grad student at St. Joseph, who is compiling data there. I'd like to extend it more into Hartford and some of these other cities. But that's using iNaturalist. I don't know if you pollinator people use iNaturalist all the time. But there's a whole group for sharing that, Inline Naturalist. So it's about iNaturalist. So here again, what can you do? Shut off your lights. These are our partners. Connecticut Audubon, International Dark Skies. Fat Robin has been very generous. Audubon Connecticut, Pollinator Pathways, a Divinity School, Hartford Audubon, Monuckatuck. So thank you. And what are your questions?